What is up, besties, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Scotty Holiday. I'm a queer creator and huge Star Wars nerd, so if you're into either one of those things, please consider subscribing and follow me on social media at Scotty Holiday SW for all my latest Star Wars content. With the Ahsoka series rapidly approaching, I thought it would be fun to go back and rank what I consider to be Ahsoka's top 10 emotional moments in the timeline so far. Of course, this video will contain spoilers for Ahsoka's animation journey. This is your spoiler warning. This video was created during the 2023 WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes without the labor of the writers and actors currently on strike. Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, Forces of Destiny, The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, and Tales of the Jedi would not exist. Please check the description for more information on the strike and how you can support. Let me know some of your favorite Ahsoka moments in the comments below, and let's get into this ranking. Starting off the list at number 10, I have The Clone Wars Season 2, Episode 11, Lightsaber Lost. In this episode, we get the introduction of one of my favorite Jedi Master Tara Sinube, and see him teaming up with Ahsoka to locate her stolen lightsaber in the Coruscant underworld. Now, most people will probably write this off as filler, but this is actually one of my favorite one-off episodes of the entire series. It's after their adventure that Master Sinube takes interest in Ahsoka's training, becoming one of her many mentors throughout her time in the Order. We also get his famous quote, "The value of moving slowly is that one can always clearly see the way ahead." Now at number 9, I have the Mortis arc. This arc plays out through the Clone Wars Season 3, episodes 15, 16, and 17, and sees Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka transported to Mortis, an ethereal realm within the Force, meeting a family of exceptionally powerful Force wielders in an attempt to fulfill Anakin's true destiny as the Chosen One. Now this arc introduced us to the Mortis gods, the daughter who is the embodiment of the light side of the Force, the son who embodies the dark side, and the father who keeps the two in balance. This episode also gives us our first glimpse of Ahsoka in the future through a vision she has while on the planet that warns her of her potential to fall into darkness under the influence of her master. Ahsoka actually dies in this arc, but Anakin is able to bring her back to life using the remaining life force of the daughter. So at this point, Ahsoka is basically the living embodiment of the light side of the Force. Next at number 8, I've got Tales of the Jedi Season 1, Episode 1, Life and Death. This episode shows us the first year of Ahsoka's life on her home planet Sheely, from her birth to the moment she's discovered as Force sensitive, and this episode feels like a must-watch for any Ahsoka fan. I got emotional after Ahsoka's birth and introduction by her mother, Pav T, announcing her name as Ahsoka to the village. I also cried at the end of the episode when a baby Ahsoka returns to her village after being kidnapped by a wild beast, taming it with her natural Force abilities. I loved getting to see more of the Torgruta culture and the world building it added to the Star Wars universe as well. So for number 7, I have what I'm calling the Fulcrum arc of Star Wars Rebels leading up to Ahsoka's reveal, playing out through Season 1 in episodes 7, 9, 14, and 15. Now, this was a really fun time because I was watching the series live on Disney XD as it was airing, and the big mystery was, who is Fulcrum? Fans online started messing with the pitch and kind of decrypting the Fulcrum audio, revealing that it was actually Ashley Eckstein. And I was actually able to find some of the sound clips that I looked up on SoundCloud way back in the day, so I just wanted to add them in here so everybody can kind of understand like how intently we were trying to figure out who Fulcrum was.
This is Fulcrum. Come in. Already at the rendezvous, Spectre 2. Supplies are unloaded and ready. Should I wait? Spectre 2, what's the problem? Understood. Fulcrum out.
And on top of that, once Fulcrum was revealed to be Ahsoka, we got to see her brand new character design in the Rebels animation style, which at the time, I think I actually liked more than her design in the Clone Wars. It was such an exciting time to be an Ahsoka fan. Now at number 6, I've got what I'm calling Ahsoka's Discovery arc. This arc plays out through Star Wars Rebels Season 2, episodes 2, 3, and 18, showing Ahsoka slowly uncovering the truth of Anakin's fate and his eventual turn to the dark side. Episode 2 shows the Ghost Crew's second encounter with Vader, and Ahsoka and Kanan try to reach out on the Force to see if they can figure out who this guy could be. The entire experience is so overwhelming that Ahsoka ends up screaming and fainting. Vader recognizes Ahsoka's presence in that moment, saying, "The apprentice lives." And what was so crazy about this moment is this was probably the first time they had felt each other's presence through the Force in years. Episode 3 has Ahsoka sending Kanan and Ezra on a mission to locate and recruit Captain Rex to the Alliance, and when Ezra asks why Ahsoka isn't going with them, she tells him she has something else to attend to, saying there are questions that need answering. about the Sith Lord. Episode 18 shows Ahsoka watching Anakin's training holocron and revealing to Ezra that he was her master. Then later in the episode, Ahsoka has a vision in the Lothal Jedi Temple of Anakin, which kind of plays into the guilt she's been carrying for years after leaving the Order and leaving his side, feeling responsible for his possible downfall. The vision ends with Anakin asking, "Do you know what I've become?" as Vader's image appears and we hear his iconic breathing, confirming what Ahsoka had feared since their first encounter. It's extremely haunting, and even after this confirmation, Ahsoka tells herself there's still a way, but she leaves the temple, assuming she's referring to trying to save him. So this puts us at the halfway point in my ranking, and at number 5, I have Star Wars Rebels Season 2 Episode 10, The Future of the Force. After learning that the Imperial Inquisitors are abducting Force-sensitive children, Ahsoka and the Ghost Crew investigate, leading them to the planet Gorel on the heels of the 5th brother and 7th sister. At the climax of the episode, the Inquisitors have our heroes cornered and beaten outside of the hangar for their escape. And just when it seems all hope is lost, the hangar doors open to a blinding light as Ahsoka emerges, igniting her brand new white lightsabers as her theme swells in the background. Not only was this the first time Kanan and Ezra get to see Ahsoka in action, but it's also the first time we as the audience got to see her in action in nearly 3 years. It was so cool to see a truly kick-ass Jedi in this series, and also just see how powerful Ahsoka had grown since we last saw her during the Clone Wars Season 5, since, at the time, this was 5 years prior to the release of the Clone Wars Season 7. I remember I was blown away by just how powerful she had become, and seeing her with white lightsabers was so cool and so unique. Ever since then, her white lightsabers have been my favorite. Next at number 4, we have the Star Wars Rebels Season 4 Episode 13, A World Between Worlds. During this episode, Ezra unlocks the portal of the Force Wielders into a mystical dimension of the Force that connects all space and time. After spotting Morai above one of the many portals, Ezra is able to see the final moments of Ahsoka and Darth Vader's duel on Malachor, and out of instinct, reaches through and pulls her to safety out of that moment in time and into the world between worlds with him. After realizing he was able to save Ahsoka from dying, Ezra decides that he wants to try to save Kanan as well, and we get an amazing moment of Ahsoka talking him down, saying, "You can't save your master, and I can't save mine." Now this moment seemingly shows Ahsoka has finally accepted Anakin's fate, and what's even crazier is this was literally moments after her duel with him. Eventually, Darth Sidious attempts to enter the world between worlds using Sith alchemy, sending a flow of blue flames through one of the portals at Ahsoka and Ezra, and after just barely holding him off and racing back to their specific moments in time, Ezra tells Ahsoka to come find him when she returns, with Ahsoka responding, "I will, I promise," thus setting up the search for Ezra that will inevitably play out in the Ahsoka series. Now, this was 2 years after Twilight of the Apprentice, when I actually, and a lot of people thought, Ahsoka died. That was her end. So when this happened in Season 4, it literally blew our minds. Not only just the world between worlds itself, but the fact that Ahsoka had basically died twice, and this was the second time she was saved. I know some people were kind of upset about it because they thought her death at the hands of Vader was kind of poetic, but of course, me being an Ahsoka stan, I was thrilled that she was alive again. There was the big Ahsoka lives question mark. Ahsoka lives. So it was such an amazing time. Now, for my number 3, we're going back to the Clone Wars for Season 7, Episodes 9, 10, 11, and 12, the Siege of Mandalore arc. Season 7 as a whole was a season of the Clone Wars we never thought we'd get to see, yet 7 years after the series' cancellation, the Clone Wars was officially back to give the series a fitting end. On top of all this hype, Ahsoka was back, and we were finally going to see what she was up to during the final days of the Clone Wars in Order 66. The Siege of Mandalore arc showed us Ahsoka and Bo-Katan teaming up to retake Mandalore from Maul, and detailed how Ahsoka survived the events of Order 66. At the beginning of the arc, we get to see Anakin and Ahsoka's first reunion since she had left the Jedi Order, the reveal of her updated blue-bladed lightsabers that Anakin had actually kept the entire time. We get the super emotional scene of Rex and the 332nd clone troopers who've painted their helmets to match Ahsoka's facial markings, which, honestly, this scene was such an amazing moment, and, the feeling that it made me feel, it's something that I'm never going to forget. It was just so beautiful to see. Once Ahsoka comes face to face with Maul in the throne room on Mandalore, he actually reveals what he knows of the Sith grand plan and the part Anakin will play into it. He actually asks Ahsoka to join him to try to take down Sidious and the Sith. And I can't lie, I wanted her to take his hand. So when she's like, I will help you, I was like, holy shit, what are they gonna do? But of course, you know, we knew how the events played out. Order 66 was gonna happen, like nothing was gonna change from Revenge of the Sith. So even though I knew that wasn't going to happen, I was like, oh my god, they could really do this. Like, I was so into it and just on the edge of my seat. This also gave us one of the best animated Star Wars duels, with Ray Park even coming in to do motion capture for the fight. The choreography and everything for this duel between Ahsoka and Maul, like, I think it's the best animated Star Wars duel ever, at least the way that it looks. Oh, it was just so good. I don't think anything will ever top it. But then again, there is the moment at my number 1 spot, but we'll get to that in just a bit. Another surprisingly unexpected inclusion in this arc was the tie-ins to Revenge of the Sith, weaving Ahsoka's story into the events of Episode 3, and while we knew the inevitable outcome, I was still on the edge of my seat the entire time. The final episodes of the arc are probably the most emotional, with the activation of Order 66, the clones turning on Ahsoka and her escape with the help of Captain Rex, the clone burial, and then the final scene of Darth Vader discovering Ahsoka's lightsaber among the wreckage and igniting it one last time. Now, just barely missing the top spot at number 2, I have the Clone Wars Season 5 episodes 17, 18, 19, and 20, known as the Rogue Jedi arc. In this arc, Ahsoka is framed for the bombing of the Jedi Temple, expelled from the Jedi Order, tried for sedition by a Republic military court, proven innocent, asked to rejoin the Order, and ultimately ends up refusing and walking away from the Jedi altogether. There is so much in this arc between the High Council turning on Ahsoka, Anakin's persistence to prove her innocence, Barriss Offee, arguably Ahsoka's best friend in the Order, being the one to frame her for the act, the High Council trying to spin the entire ordeal as Ahsoka's great trial to becoming a Jedi Knight. Like, this arc takes you from one emotion to the other, and it's so hard hitting. It honestly seems like nothing is going to save Ahsoka in the end, and we as the audience know that she was innocent, but it's like everybody else except basically Anakin and Padme don't believe her and are ready to try her. Like, at the end, once Anakin finally barges into the court proceeding, I have a feeling they were about to find her guilty, and if he hadn't come, or if he'd come a moment later, who knows what would have happened to her. We even see both Anakin and Ahsoka working with Asajj Ventress, another favorite character of mine at different points in this arc, which was such a cool inclusion. This arc is so emotional, and it's just hit after hit after hit. Seeing Barriss's fall and regret, Plo Koon and Obi-Wan's reactions when Ahsoka decides to leave the Order, and the entire ending after Anakin rushes out after Ahsoka in their final conversation at the steps of the temple. Like, there's just so much, and I end up crying by the end of it every single time. It never fails. This arc was so devastating too, because once we got to the Clone Wars Season 6, there was no Ahsoka at all. And at the time, there was no Clone Wars Season 7 announced, so that was the end of Ahsoka's story as we knew it. She left behind everything she knew, everyone she knew and cared about. Like, it was just crazy to see her journey at the time from this ending at Season 5 and then where she is in Rebels. It's like, she's the same person, but kind of like what she tells Ezra about Yoda, it's like she's kind of carrying a deep sorrow, which is understandable for everything that's happened to her up until that point. Now, before I go over the number 1 spot, I have to go over some honorable mentions as well. So, of course, I have to mention Ahsoka's introduction in the Clone Wars movie. Like, without this, there's no Ahsoka. Then there's Forces of Destiny Season 1 Episode 10, where Ahsoka learns to master dual-wielding her 2 sabers by fighting in her unique reverse grip stance by Master Yoda, as well as Season 2 Episode 16, where Ahsoka assumes the role of Master, helping Ezra Bridger to learn to trust the Force rather than always relying on his lightsaber. Of course, I also have to mention Ahsoka's appearances in The Mandalorian Season 2, Chapter 13 The Jedi, which I swear I've watched at least 20 times at this point. And it was so emotional for me at the time simply because this was her first time in live action. It's something we had been waiting for so long, and it was finally here. And lastly, Ahsoka's surprise appearance in the Book of Boba Fett Chapter 6, From the Desert Comes a Stranger, where we see Ahsoka with none other than Luke Skywalker during the construction of his Jedi Academy on the planet Ossus, which also made me cry my eyes out. And finally, that brings us to my number 1 spot for my most emotional Ahsoka moment, and I have Rebels Season 2, Episodes 21 and 22, Twilight of the Apprentice. This is the episode where Ahsoka, Kanan, and Ezra visit Malachor, hoping to learn the secret to destroying the Sith. During their encounter, they come across 3 Inquisitors, Maul, and even Vader himself, ending in a duel between Ahsoka and her former master. Not only did I love Ezra teaming up with Maul in this episode, but we also saw Ahsoka and Kanan team up with Maul against the 7th sister, 5th brother, and 8th brother. Later on in the episode, once Darth Vader arrives and disarms Ezra, destroying his lightsaber, he tells Ezra he will die braver than most. But before dealing the final blow, Vader says, "Perhaps I was wrong." And then we hear the voice of none other than Ahsoka responding to him saying, "It wouldn't be the first time." This moment never fails to give me chills, like I'm getting chills thinking about it. This is also the moment where we get Ahsoka's iconic line, "I am no Jedi." And this is also the first time in the timeline we get to see the man behind the mask, with Ahsoka slashing off the right side of Vader's helmet, revealing Anakin underneath as we hear Matt Lanter's Anakin calling out her name. And in this moment, like, Ahsoka was shocked, I was shocked, it was so crazy. Once this confirms Vader's true identity, Ahsoka tells him, "I won't leave you, not this time." And this is the moment that breaks me every time, and once again, I start crying. After a long pause, when it seems like Vader might actually consider her offer, Vader ignites his lightsaber saying, "Then you will die," reigniting their duel as the temple begins to close around them. Now, are y'all actually surprised this is my number 1 though? Like, I literally have a painting of this moment behind my head in all of my videos. So these are my most emotional Ahsoka moments, but how does your list compare? Let me know down in the comments or join my Discord to continue the conversation. Make sure to like and subscribe, and consider following me on social media at Scotty Holiday SW for all my latest Star Wars content. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.